Welcome to HOA rejected. The guest pass was real, and she still called it fake. I will not be ignored. That is what she screamed at the tow driver, while he stood there with his clipboard, looking from her to me, and back again like he was watching a tennis match where one player had lost her mind. The driver asked for paperwork, and Karen yelled that her word was the paperwork, and that was how enforcement worked. I am standing in the guest parking lot of Park Pass Ridge Commons Association in Meridian, Idaho, watching a tow truck back toward my car, and the woman yelling at the driver is Evelyn Jackson, the board secretary who has decided my vehicle is her personal project. I work as a regional field technician, always on a deadline, always moving between sites. I moved into Park Pass Ridge Commons 6 months ago because the rent was decent, and the location put me close to 3 job sites I rotate through. The neighborhood is one of those cookie-cutter Idaho developments, where the mailbox cluster is the unofficial courtroom, and everyone knows your business before you finish unloading the moving truck. The HOA has rules about everything: trash cans, lawn height, decorations, and especially parking. I knew that going in. What I did not know was that Evelyn Jackson had a handheld label maker she used to tag vehicles as violations, a retractable badge reel with a blank card clipped to her jacket like she was mall security, and an agenda that would turn my life into a bureaucratic nightmare. The driver is a kid, maybe 22, and he is sweating even though it is only April and the weather is cool with storm clouds piling up in the distance. He looks at me and says, "Do you live here?" I say yes. Unit 14, lease is current, and my vehicle is registered with the office. Evelyn steps between us. She is a middle-aged white woman with red hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, wearing a blue light jacket with the hood up even though it is not raining yet. She has a clipboard in one hand and that label maker in the other. She says, "Registration does not matter if you park in guest spaces overnight. That is a violation. The vehicle will be towed." I say, "I parked here at 6 p.m. yesterday because my assigned spot was blocked by a contractor truck. I submitted a note to the office this morning." She says, "Notes are not permits. You need advance approval in writing. This vehicle has been flagged for removal." The driver says, "Ma'am, I need a signed authorization form from the HOA or the management company before I can hook this up." Evelyn holds up her clipboard and taps it with one finger. She says, "I am the board secretary. I am authorizing it. Hook it up." The driver hesitates. He says, "I need the actual form. It has to have the account number and the violation code." Evelyn leans in, and her voice drops into that dangerous register where you know someone is about to say something unhinged. She says, "I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it." She pulls out her phone and starts dialing, pacing in a tight circle near the rear of my car. I pull out my phone and open the camera app. I have learned in 6 months that if Evelyn is involved, you record everything. She notices and whirls around, pointing at me. She says, "You are not allowed to film me without consent." I say, "We are in a public parking lot. I do not need consent." She says, "This is private property, and I am telling you to stop." I keep recording. The driver is watching this unfold, and I can see him calculating whether the $20 hook fee is worth the liability. Evelyn is still on the phone, and I hear her say, "Yes, I need a tow authorization pushed through immediately. Unit 14 guest lot. Yes, right now." Thunder rumbles in the distance. The storm is moving in fast, that sudden Idaho spring weather that goes from gray to drenching in 10 minutes. I can feel the pressure drop, and my deadline is ticking. I have a site inspection in Nampa at 2 p.m., and it is already noon. I cannot afford to lose my car for even a few hours, let alone deal with impound fees. I am rebuilding my finances after a bad year, and I cannot absorb bogus fees. Evelyn ends the call and walks back over. She says, "Management is emailing the authorization now. You will wait." I say, "I submitted a note this morning explaining the situation. I moved the car as soon as the contractor left." She says, "Your note is not a permit. The rules are clear. Overnight parking in guest spaces is prohibited without advance written approval. You violated the policy." I say, "The contractor was in my assigned spot until 8 a.m. I could not park there." She says, "Then you should have parked on the street." I say, street parking is banned under the HOA rules. You sent a mass email about it last month. She smiles, and it is the kind of smile that tells you she has been waiting for this. She says, exactly. So you had no legal place to park your vehicle. That is your problem, not mine. The tow driver is looking at his phone. He says, I just got the email. It has the authorization code. I am cleared to proceed. I say, wait. Let me see that email. He hesitates, then turns the phone toward me. The email is from a generic management company address with Evelyn CC'd. The authorization code is listed, but the violation description just says unauthorized vehicle, guest lot, no permit. There is no mention of my note, no acknowledgement that my assigned spot was blocked, nothing about the contractor. I say, this is not accurate. My assigned spot was occupied. I have photos. Evelyn says, photos are not permits. The policy is clear. I turn to the driver and say, I am going to file a dispute with the management company. If you tow this car, I will hold you and the HOA liable for wrongful towing. The driver looks nervous. He says, man, I just do what they tell me. If the authorization is legit, I have to hook it. Evelyn steps closer to me. She is maybe 5'4", but she has that energy where physical size does not matter because she is used to people folding. She says, I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink. She taps her label maker against her clipboard for emphasis. I let her think I am cornered because my trump card needs her to overreach. I have been gathering evidence for 3 weeks, ever since she started targeting me with bogus notices. I have screenshots of the HOA group chat coordinating a targeted enforcement wave, time-stamped photos proving my assigned spot was blocked, and a dashcam that has been recording every interaction in this parking lot since March. But I do not pull any of that yet. I need her to commit fully to this tow, so the paperwork trail is undeniable. The driver walks back to his truck and starts extending the wheel lift. The hydraulic whine cuts through the low rumble of thunder. I step back and keep my phone camera trained on Evelyn. She notices and says, "What are you doing?" I say, "Documenting everything." She says, "You are harassing me." I say, "I am standing in a parking lot recording a tow that I believe is illegal." She laughs, sharp and mean. She says, "Believe whatever you want. Your car is gone in 2 minutes, and you are going to pay $400 to get it back, plus a $50 daily storage fee." The wheel lift slides under my rear axle and starts to lift. My stomach drops, even though I knew this was coming. The driver locks the lift arms and walks back to his cab. Evelyn is standing there with her arms crossed, watching me like she just won a championship. I hit stop on my phone recording and send the file to my cloud backup immediately. Then I open my messages and text my ally, contractor who has photos and timestamps from the day Karen interfered. His name is Marco, and he has been working in the neighborhood for 2 months installing new HVAC systems. He saw Evelyn corner me last week, and he offered to be a witness if I ever needed one. I text, "They are towing my car right now. Can you confirm you blocked my spot yesterday until 8 a.m.? He replies in 30 seconds, "Yeah man, I have the invoice and my truck GPS log. I was there until 08:15. Want me to send it?" I reply, "Yes, and can you write a short statement?" He replies, "On it." The tow truck starts pulling forward. My car is half off the ground now, rear wheels lifted, front wheels dragging. Evelyn is still standing there, and I walk up to her and say, "You are going to regret this." She says, "I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it." "Oh wait, I already did. Your car is gone. Have fun walking." The truck pulls out of the lot, and I watch my car disappear around the corner. The first raindrops hit my face, fat and cold. I pull my hood tighter and walk back to my unit. My phone buzzes. It is Marco. He has sent a PDF of his invoice showing the job address and time window, a screenshot of his truck's GPS log, and a 1-paragraph statement confirming he occupied my assigned spot from 6 p.m. Monday to 8:15 a.m. Tuesday, and that I asked him to move as soon as he arrived Tuesday morning. I forward everything to the management company with a formal dispute email. I write that the tow was retaliatory, that my assigned spot was blocked by a contractor, that I notified the office the same morning, and that the HOA failed to consider my evidence before authorizing the tow. I attach Marco's statement and the GPS log. I CC the board president and the HOA attorney, listed on the association website. I hit send and check the time. It is 12:40. My site inspection is in 1 hour and 20 minutes. The tow yard is 15 miles away in Boise. I call a rideshare and start calculating costs. Rideshare to the tow yard, $18. Tow release fee, $400. Time lost, at least 2 hours, which means I miss my inspection window and have to reschedule, which puts me behind schedule for the rest of the week. I feel the anger building, but I force it down. Anger does not win HOA wars. Evidence does. The rideshare arrives at 1:10. The driver is a guy in his 50s who asks why I am going to a tow yard. I give him the short version. He laughs and says HOAs are the worst. I got fined $300 once for leaving my trash can out 4 hours past pickup. They sent a photographer. We pull into the tow yard at 1:35. It is a chain-link fortress with rows of cars behind a tall fence and a small office trailer near the gate. I walk in, and the woman at the desk does not even look up. She says name and vehicle. I give her my name and my plate number. She types, clicks, types again. She says, $400 release fee, $50 administrative fee, and you owe the HOA a $120 violation fine. Total is $570. I say, I am disputing the tow. It was wrongful. The HOA did not follow procedure, and my assigned spot was blocked. She says, dispute is between you and the HOA. We just hold the vehicle. You want it, you pay. I say, can I get an itemized receipt? She prints one and slides it across the counter. I scan it with my phone and see a line item that says legal processing fee, $75. I say, what is a legal processing fee? She shrugs. She says, that is what the HOA charges. We just collect it. I pay with my credit card, the one I have been trying to pay down for 8 months. The charge goes through, and I feel a spike of stress that I shove into a mental box labeled deal with later. She hands me a release form, and I walk out to the yard. My car is parked in the third row, covered in dust and smelling faintly of diesel. I get in, start the engine, and pull out. I drive straight to my site inspection and arrive at 40 minutes late. The property manager is annoyed, but professional. He says, I can give you 20 minutes, but then I have another appointment. I do the inspection as fast as I can, checking panel boards and conduit runs, taking photos, filling out the compliance sheet. I finish at 3 and drive back to Meridian. My phone has 6 new emails. 3 are automated notices from the HOA system. One is from Evelyn, with the subject line, violation summary and payment due. I do not open it yet. I pull into my assigned spot, now empty, no contractor truck, and sit in my car for a minute. My chest is tight and my hands are shaking slightly, the adrenaline dump finally catching up. I open Evelyn's email. It is a PDF with my name, my address, and a list of 3 violations: unauthorized overnight parking in guest lot, failure to obtain advance written permit, refusal to comply with board directive. Each violation has a $50 fine. The total is $150, due in 10 days. I screenshot the email and add it to my evidence folder. Then I call the management company. The receptionist transfers me to a compliance coordinator named Angela. I explain the situation. I tell her about the blocked spot, Marco's statement, the GPS log, and the fact that I notified the office the same morning. She listens and says, I see your email. I will forward it to the board and the attorney. Disputes typically take 2 to 4 weeks to review. I say, 2 to 4 weeks? I just paid $570 for a wrongful tow. She says, I understand, but the process has steps. The board has to review your evidence, and if they deny your dispute, you can appeal to the full board or pursue it in small claims court. I say, the tow happened today. The evidence is clear. Why does it take a month? She says, because the board meets once a month, and they have to vote on disputes. I hang up and sit there staring at my steering wheel. A maintenance worker in a reflective vest walks past my car, glances at me, and keeps walking. I recognize him. He is always around, trimming hedges, fixing sprinklers, watching everything. He saw the tow truck this morning. He did not say anything, but he saw it. That night I cannot sleep. I keep replaying the scene, Evelyn yelling at the driver, the wheel lift locking under my car, her saying I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink. I get up at 2 a.m. and open my laptop. I start building a timeline document. I list every interaction with Evelyn, every email, every notice, every fee. I cross-reference it with the HOA governing documents I downloaded from the association website. I find the section on towing enforcement. It says that vehicles may be towed only after written notice is provided to the owner, and a 48-hour cure period has elapsed, except in cases of immediate safety hazard. I never received written notice. The email Evelyn sent this morning was after the tow, not before. I screenshot the rule and add it to my folder. Then I find another section. All fines and violations must be issued in accordance with a hearing process that allows the homeowner to present evidence and appeal. I never got a hearing. I add that to the folder too. By 4 a.m. I have a 20-page document with photos, timestamps, emails, rule citations, and witness statements. I export it as a PDF and title it Dispute of Wrongful Tow and Retaliatory Enforcement. I email it to Angela at the management company, CC the board president, and BCC myself. Then I go back to bed and sleep for 3 hours. If you are enjoying this chaos, hit that like button and subscribe, because it is about to get so much worse. The next morning I wake up to an email from the board president. His name is Richard, and his message is 3 sentences. We have received your dispute. The board will review it at the next meeting on May 10th. Please direct all future correspondence through the management company. May 10th is 3 weeks away. I reply, the tow was wrongful and violated HOA procedures. I am requesting an emergency review and immediate reimbursement of all fees. I attach my dispute PDF again. Richard does not reply. Evelyn does. Her email arrives at 9 a.m. with the subject line, clarification on violations. She writes, your dispute has been noted. However, the violations listed are accurate and the fines are enforceable. The tow was authorized under emergency enforcement provisions due to repeated non-compliance. Payment is due by April 25th. I read it twice, then I call Marco. He answers on the second ring. I say, I need you to be a witness if this goes to a hearing or court. He says absolutely. I have dealt with HOAs before. They are scams. I say, can you come to the next board meeting? It is May 10th at 7 p.m. He says, I will be there. I spend the rest of the morning working my regular job, but my mind is not in it. I keep thinking about Evelyn's email. Emergency enforcement provisions. I search the HOA governing documents for that phrase. It does not exist. She made it up. I screenshot her email and add it to my folder with a note, claim of emergency provision not supported by governing documents. That afternoon I get a notice taped to my door. It is printed on HOA letterhead and signed by Evelyn. It says, violation notice, failure to maintain assigned parking space in clean and orderly condition. Fine, $50. Due, April 25th. I look at my parking spot. There is nothing wrong with it. No trash, no stains, no debris. I take photos from 4 angles and add them to my folder. I text Marco, they just hit me with another bogus fine. He replies, classic, they are trying to bury you. Do not pay anything until you fight it. I reply, I am not paying. But they are going to keep escalating. He replies, let them. The more they do, the worse they look when you take it to court. He is right, but it does not make it easier. I go inside and add the new violation to my timeline. I am up to 4 fines now, totaling $200, plus the $570 I already paid for the tow. I am almost $800 in the hole, and I have not even had a hearing yet. That night I drive to the mailbox cluster to check my mail. It is the unofficial courtroom of Park Pass Ridge Commons, a covered kiosk with 30 metal boxes and a bench where neighbors sit and gossip. 3 people are there when I arrive. An older woman I recognize from the dog park, a guy in his 30s I have seen jogging, and the maintenance worker in the reflective vest. The older woman sees me and says, "I heard about your tow. Evelyn is out of control." I say, "You know her?" She says, "Everyone knows her. She has been on the board for 6 years. She ran for president twice and lost both times, so now she just terrorizes people. Last year, she fined a family $300 because their kid left a bike on the lawn." The jogger says, "She tried to tow my girlfriend's car once because the guest pass was expired by 2 hours. I had to call the police to stop it." The maintenance worker does not say anything, but he is listening. I get my mail and walk back to my car. The older woman follows me and says, "If you are fighting her, I will testify." She fined me last month for having my trash can out on the wrong day, even though the pickup schedule changed and nobody told us. I say, "I might take you up on that." She hands me a slip of paper with her name and number. Her name is Diane. She says, "Evelyn thinks she owns this place. Somebody needs to stop her." I drive home with a strange feeling. I thought I was alone in this, but it turns out half the neighborhood has a story. I add Diane's number to my contacts and make a note: potential witness, trash can fine retaliation. The next week is quiet. No new notices, no emails from Evelyn, no tow trucks. I start to think maybe she is backing off. Then, on April 23rd, 2 days before my fines are supposedly due, I get an email from a law firm I have never heard of. The subject line is, "Notice of lien preparation, Park Pass Ridge Commons Association." The email is from an attorney named Gerald Moss. It says, "You currently owe the association $200 in unpaid fines. If payment is not received by April 25th, the association will prepare a lien packet and file it with the county recorder. Liens may result in foreclosure proceedings." I read the email 3 times. Foreclosure. Over $200. I forward it to Angela at the management company with a single line: "Is this legal?" She replies an hour later, "The association has the right to pursue liens for unpaid fines. However, your dispute is still under review. I recommend you attend the May 10th board meeting to present your case in person." I call Marco. I say, "They are threatening to file a lien." He says, "They are bluffing. Liens cost money to file and they have to prove the fines are valid. If you are disputing them, they cannot just ram it through." I say, "The email came from a lawyer." He says, "HOA lawyers send scary letters. It is what they do. Do not fold." I do not fold. I reply to Gerald Moss with my dispute PDF attached, and a short message: "All fines are disputed and under review. Lien preparation is premature and potentially unlawful." I CC Angela and the board president. Gerald replies the next morning noted, "The association will review your dispute at the scheduled board meeting. However, non-payment of fines may still result in enforcement action." I forward his reply to my evidence folder and title it, "Lien Threat Before Dispute Resolution." April 25th comes and goes. I do not pay the fines. No lien is filed. I check the county recorder's website daily. Nothing. The threat was a bluff, just like Marco said. But Evelyn is not done. On April 27th, I come home from work and find a folding sign stand planted in the guest parking lot. The sign has a printed notice that says, "No parking. Violators will be towed. Authorized by HOA board." The sign is directly in front of the guest space where I parked that night 3 weeks ago. I take photos from every angle. Then I check my dashcam footage, which runs continuously when my car is parked. I scrub back to 7 a.m. and see Evelyn walking into the lot with the sign stand and a cordless drill. She unfolds the sign, drills the base into the asphalt, and walks away. The whole thing takes 4 minutes. I save the footage and send it to Marco with a note: "She is planting signs now." He replies, "That is not legal. HOA signs have to be approved by the board and posted in common areas, not drilled into asphalt without authorization. You need to report that." I email Angela. Attached is dashcam footage showing Evelyn Jackson drilling a parking sign into the guest lot without board approval. This appears to be property damage and unauthorized signage. Please advise. Angela replies, I will forward this to the board president and the property manager. Unauthorized signage is a violation of community standards. 2 days later, the sign is gone. No explanation, no email, just gone. But Evelyn does not stop. On May 2nd, I go to the grocery store in Meridian, and I am loading bags into my trunk when I hear a voice behind me say, You think you are clever, do not you? I turn around, and it is Evelyn. She is standing 5 feet away with a shopping cart, wearing the same blue light jacket and that retractable badge reel. I say, I am just buying groceries. She says, You filed a complaint about the sign. That sign was approved. I say, No, it was not. I have footage of you drilling it in yourself. She takes a step closer. She says, You are harassing me. You are stalking me with your camera and making false reports. I am going to file a restraining order. I say, You are the one who followed me to a grocery store. She says, I shop here every week. You are the one who moved into my neighborhood and started causing problems. A woman pushing a cart stops and stares. Then another shopper slows down. Phone out. Evelyn does not notice or does not care. She says, I am calling management and I am going to be dramatic about it. You are going to be evicted. I pull out my phone and start recording. She sees it and screams, Stop filming me. The woman with the phone says, I am filming too. You are harassing him. Evelyn whirls around and says, This is none of your business. The woman says, You are screaming in a public parking lot. It is everyone's business. Evelyn grabs her cart and pushes it toward the store entrance, but she stops and turns back. She says, You are not going to win. I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink. Then she goes inside. I stand there shaking. The woman who was filming walks over and says, Do you need this video? I say, Yes, please. She airdrops it to me and says, That woman is unhinged. I hope you sue her. I thank her and get in my car. I sit there for 5 minutes trying to calm down. Then I send the grocery store video to Marco and Angela with a note. Evelyn confronted me in a public parking lot and threatened eviction and further retaliation. This is now harassment. Angela replies, I will add this to the file. Please avoid contact with Miss Jackson until the board meeting. Marco replies, Dude, she is spiraling. That is good for you. The worse she looks, the better your case. He is right, but it does not feel good. I drive home and spend the rest of the day trying to focus on work. I have 3 site inspections this week, and I am behind on reports. But my mind keeps going back to Evelyn's face in that parking lot, the way she was shaking with rage, the way she said, I will bury you. On May 8th, 2 days before the board meeting, I get another email from Gerald Moss. The subject line is, Updated lien packet and account summary. The email includes a PDF attachment. I open it and my stomach drops. The packet lists 4 line items. Unauthorized parking fine, $50. Parking space maintenance fine, $50. Guest lot violation fine, $50. Legal processing and administrative fees, $275. Total owed, $425. The legal processing fee has jumped from $75 to $275. There is no explanation. I scroll down and see a note at the bottom. Failure to remit payment by May 15th will result in lien filing and additional collection fees. I forward the email to Angela with a single line. The legal fees have tripled with no explanation. This is fraud. She replies, I will ask the attorney to provide an itemized breakdown. In the meantime, please prepare your evidence for the board meeting. I reply, I have been preparing for 3 weeks. I have a 20-page dispute document, witness statements, and video evidence. She replies, Good. Be ready to present it clearly and calmly. The board does not respond well to emotion. I call Marco and tell him about the fees. He says, they are padding the bill. HOA attorneys do that all the time. They charge the association for every email, every letter, every phone call, and the association passes it on to you. It is a scam. I say, how do I fight it? He says, you demand an itemized invoice showing every charge. If they cannot provide it, you dispute it, and you request a temporary order to stop enforcement while the dispute is reviewed. That is your trump card. I write that down. Temporary order. I look up Idaho HOA law and find a statute that says homeowners can request a hearing to stop enforcement actions while a dispute is pending. I add that to my notes for the meeting. May 10th arrives. The board meeting is at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse, a small building near the mailbox cluster. I arrive at 6:55. Marco is already there, sitting on a bench outside. Diane, the older woman from the mailbox, is there too. She says, "I brought my violation notice. I want them to see the pattern." I say, "Thank you." We walk inside. The clubhouse is a single room with folding chairs arranged in rows and a table at the front where the board sits. Richard, the board president, is there with 2 other board members I do not recognize. Evelyn is sitting at the far end of the table with her clipboard and that handheld label maker. Angela from the management company is sitting off to the side with a laptop. Richard calls the meeting to order at 7 p.m. He says, "We have one dispute on the agenda tonight. Unit 14 parking violations. The homeowner has submitted a dispute packet. We will hear from him now." I stand up and walk to the front. I hand Richard a printed copy of my dispute PDF. I say, I am disputing 4 fines totaling $200 and a wrongful tow that cost me $570. The tow violated HOA procedures because I was not given written notice or a 48-hour cure period. My assigned parking spot was blocked by a contractor, which I documented with photos, GPS logs, and a witness statement. The fines are retaliatory and unsupported by the governing documents. Richard flips through the packet. He says, "We will review this and vote." I say, I am also requesting a temporary order to stop all enforcement actions while the dispute is reviewed. The association has threatened to file a lien and has increased legal fees from $75 to $275 with no explanation. Evelyn stands up. She says, "The fees are standard legal processing costs. The homeowner is refusing to pay valid fines. The lien is justified." I turn to her and say, "I am refusing to pay because the fines are invalid. I was never given a hearing. I was never given notice before the tow. You drilled a parking sign into the asphalt without board approval and then had it removed when I reported it. You confronted me in a grocery store parking lot and threatened eviction. This is harassment." Evelyn slams her hand on the table. She says, "I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it. This is defamation. You are lying to make me look bad." Richard says, "Evelyn, sit down." She does not sit. She says, "He has been stalking me, filming me, filing false reports. I want him removed from the property." Marco stands up from the audience. He says, "I am a witness. I was the contractor who blocked his spot. I have GPS logs and an invoice proving I was there until 8:15 a.m. He asked me to move as soon as I arrived. The tow was wrongful." Diane stands up. She says, "Evelyn fined me last month for a trash can violation that was not my fault. She is targeting people. This is a pattern." Richard holds up a hand. He says, "Everyone sit down. We will review the evidence and vote." Evelyn is still standing. Her face is red and her hands are shaking. She says, "You are going to believe him over me? I am the board secretary. I enforce the rules. That is my job." Richard says, "Evelyn, sit down now, or I will remove you from the meeting." She sits, but she is glaring at me. Richard looks at Angela and says, "Do we have the homeowner's dispute packet in the file?" Angela says yes, and I have forwarded it to the HOA attorney for review. Richard says, "We will take a 10-minute recess to review the evidence, then we will vote." Everyone stands up. I walk outside with Marco and Diane. Marco says, "You did great. They cannot ignore this." Diane says, "Evelyn looked like she was going to explode." I say, "She is going to come after me harder now." Marco says, "Let her. You have witnesses. You have video. You have her on record threatening you." We go back inside after 10 minutes. Richard calls the meeting back to order. He says, "We have reviewed the dispute packet and the witness statements. The board finds that the tow was authorized under the guest parking policy. However, the homeowner's assigned spot was blocked, which is a mitigating factor. We are reducing the tow fine to $0 and reimbursing the homeowner for the $570 he paid. The parking violation fines are upheld at $50 each, total $150, because advance written approval was required regardless of the blocked spot. I say, that is not what the governing documents say. The documents require written notice and a cure period before enforcement. Richard says, the board interprets the documents. Our decision is final unless you appeal to a judge. Evelyn stands up again. She says, this is a mistake. You are rewarding bad behavior. He violated the rules, and now you are letting him off. Richard says, Evelyn, the decision is made. She says, I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it. This is not over. Richard says, Evelyn, if you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed from the board. She grabs her clipboard and her label maker and storms out. The door slams behind her. The room is silent. Richard says, meeting adjourned. I walk out with Marco and Diane. Marco says, you got your money back. That is a win. I say, but I still owe $150 in fines. Marco says, disputed in small claims court. You have the evidence. Diane says, I will testify if you need me. I thank them and drive home. I feel like I won something, but it does not feel like enough. I am still out $150 for fines I do not believe are valid, and Evelyn is still on the board, still holding that label maker, still threatening to bury me. The next morning I get an email from Angela. The subject line is, reimbursement check and updated account summary. She writes, your reimbursement check for $570 will be mailed within 10 business days. Your account balance is $150. Payment is due by May 20th. I reply, I am disputing the remaining fines in small claims court. Do not expect payment. She does not reply. That afternoon I file a small claims case in Ada County. The filing fee is $75, which I pay with the same credit card that is still carrying the balance from the tow. I list Evelyn Jackson and Park Pass Ridge Commons Association as defendants. I attach my dispute PDF, Marco's statement, Diane's violation notice, and the grocery store video. I request $150 in reimbursement for wrongful fines, $75 for the filing fee, and a declaratory judgment that the fines were invalid. The court schedules a hearing for June 15th. I get a copy of the summons and serve it to the HOA registered agent, which is listed as the management company. Angela emails me the next day. We have received your summons. The association will be represented by legal counsel. Gerald Moss, the attorney, emails me 2 days later. He writes, your claim is without merit. The association has the authority to issue fines under the governing documents. We will seek dismissal and attorney fees. I do not reply. I forward his email to my evidence folder and add a note, attorney threatens fees to intimidate. For the next 3 weeks, nothing happens. No emails from Evelyn, no new fines, no signs planted in the parking lot. I start to think maybe it is over. Then on June 10th, 5 days before the hearing, I get a certified letter from Gerald Moss. The envelope is thick. I open it and pull out a 20-page document titled Association Counterclaim and Request for Attorney Fees. The document lists 8 claims: defamation, harassment, filing a frivolous lawsuit, misuse of court process, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and 3 others I do not fully understand. The total claim is for $12,000 in damages and attorney fees. I read the document twice, and my hands are shaking. $12,000 for filing a small claims case. I call Marco. I say they are countersuing me for $12,000. He says, that is a slap suit. They are trying to scare you into dropping the case. I say, what do I do? He says, you show up to the hearing and you fight it. Slap suits almost never win. They are just intimidation. I say, I cannot afford a lawyer. He says, you do not need one for small claims. Just bring your evidence and tell the truth. I hang up and sit there staring at the counterclaim. $12,000. The number loops in my head. I think about dropping the case, paying the $150, and walking away. But then I think about Evelyn's face in the grocery store lot, the way she said I will bury you, and I know that if I fold now, she will never stop. June 15th arrives. The hearing is at 9 a.m. in the Ada County Courthouse. I arrive at 8:45 with a folder full of printed documents, my dispute PDF, Marco's statement, Diane's notice, the dashcam footage burned to a disk, the grocery store video, the email chains, the counterclaim, and a 2-page response I typed up last night. Marco meets me outside the courtroom. He says, "I took the morning off. I am here as your witness." Diane is there too. She says I want to see this. We go inside. The courtroom is small, more like a conference room with a judge's bench at the front. Gerald Moss is already there with a briefcase and a yellow legal pad. Evelyn is sitting beside him, wearing a gray blazer and that retractable badge reel. She does not look at me. The judge enters at 9. She is a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and reading glasses. She says, "This is case number 24-1231, Plaintiff versus Park Pass, Ridge Commons Association. We are here for a small claims hearing and a counterclaim motion. Plaintiff, you may begin." I stand up and walk to the front. I hand the judge a copy of my evidence folder. I say, "Your Honor, I am disputing $150 in HOA fines that were issued without proper notice or a hearing. My assigned parking spot was blocked by a contractor, which I documented with photos and witness statements. I notified the HOA the same morning, but they towed my car without written notice or a cure period. The board reimbursed me for the tow after I presented evidence, but they upheld the fines. I am requesting reimbursement and a finding that the fines were invalid." The judge flips through my folder. She says, "You have a lot of documentation here." I say, "Yes, Your Honor. I also have a witness who can confirm the contractor blocked my spot." Marco stands up. He says, "I am the contractor. I have GPS logs and an invoice proving I occupied his spot until 8:15 a.m. He asked me to move as soon as I arrived that morning." The judge looks at Gerald Moss. She says, "Counsel, your response." Gerald stands up. He says, "Your Honor, the association has the authority to issue fines under the governing documents. The plaintiff violated the guest parking policy by parking overnight without advance approval. The contractor's presence is not relevant because the plaintiff had other options, including street parking." I say, "Street parking is banned under the HOA rules." The judge says, "Is that true, counsel?" Gerald says, "The street parking ban applies to long-term parking, not temporary overnight parking." I say, "That is not what the rule says. I have a copy of the email the board sent last year." I pull out a printed email and hand it to the judge. The email is from Richard, the board president, and it says, "Reminder, all street parking is prohibited per county ordinance and HOA policy. Violators will be towed." The judge reads it and says, "This seems pretty clear. Counsel, do you have a response?" Gerald says, "The email is not the governing document. The governing document allows temporary street parking in emergency situations." The judge says, "But the plaintiff's assigned spot was blocked. That sounds like an emergency situation." Gerald says, "He could have parked in a different guest space." I say, "All the other guest spaces were full. I took photos." I hand the judge 4 photos showing every guest space occupied. The judge looks at them and says, "So he had no legal place to park his vehicle." Gerald says, "He could have arranged alternative parking off-site." The judge looks at him over her glasses. She says, "At 6 p.m. on a weekday, with no advance notice that his spot was blocked. Counsel, that is not reasonable." Gerald says, "The rules are the rules, Your Honor." The judge says, "The rules also require written notice and a hearing before fines are issued. Did the association provide that?" Gerald says, "The association provided notice via email after the tow." The judge says, "After the tow, so no advance notice." Gerald says, "The plaintiff was aware of the policy." The judge says, Awareness of the policy is not the same as notice of a specific violation and an opportunity to cure. Counsel, I am finding in favor of the plaintiff. The fines are invalid. The association will reimburse the plaintiff $150 plus the $75 filing fee. Total $225. Evelyn stands up. She says, Your Honor, this is outrageous. He has been harassing me for months. He films me. He files false reports. The judge cuts her off. She says, Ma'am, sit down. I have made my ruling. Evelyn says, I am calling management, and I am going to be dramatic about it. The judge says, Ma'am, if you do not sit down, I will hold you in contempt. Evelyn sits, but she is shaking. The judge looks at Gerald and says, Now, regarding the counterclaim. Counsel, you are requesting $12,000 in damages and fees. On what basis? Gerald says, the plaintiff has engaged in a pattern of harassment and defamation against Miss Jackson. He has filmed her without consent, made false reports, and filed a frivolous lawsuit. The judge says, I just ruled that the lawsuit was not frivolous. The plaintiff had valid evidence and prevailed. As for filming, Idaho is a one-party consent state, and the incidents occurred in public spaces or common areas. I see no harassment. I am dismissing the counterclaim with prejudice. The association will pay the plaintiff's costs. Gerald says, Your Honor, we request. The judge says, Request denied. This hearing is concluded. She bangs the gavel. Evelyn stands up and storms out of the courtroom. Gerald packs his briefcase and follows her without a word. I stand there for a second, not quite believing it. Marco walks up and says, You won. Clean sweep. Diane says, That was beautiful. Did you see her face? I say, I still cannot believe it. The judge's clerk hands me a copy of the order. It says, Judgment for plaintiff. Defendant association shall pay $225 within 30 days. Counterclaim dismissed with prejudice. I walk outside into the June sunshine. Marco and Diane walk with me to the parking lot. Marco says, What are you going to do now? I say, I am going to cash that check and move on. Diane says, You should run for the board. Evelyn needs to go. I say, I do not know. I just want this to be over. But it is not over yet. 2 days later, I get an email from Angela. The subject line is, Board Meeting Summary and Policy Update. The email says, At the June 16th board meeting, the board voted to implement a new parking enforcement process. All violations will now require written notice and a 48-hour cure period before towing. Fines will require a hearing with the opportunity to present evidence. The board also voted to request a compliance audit of all enforcement actions taken in the past 12 months. I read it twice. A compliance audit. That is the HOA compliance process being audited and cleaned up, which means someone higher up is paying attention. I forward the email to Marco and Diane with a note, We did it. Marco replies, Hell yeah. Want to get a beer? Diane replies, I knew you could do it. Evelyn is done. That night I am sitting on my couch when I get a final email. It is from Gerald Moss. The subject line is, Corrected account summary and board directive. The email says, Per the court order and subsequent board review, your account balance is 0. All previous fines and fees have been voided. Additionally, the board has directed me to inform you that Miss Evelyn Jackson has been removed from her role as board secretary, pending an internal review of her enforcement actions. The board apologizes for any inconvenience. I close my laptop and sit there in the quiet. Karen gets corrected by the HOA attorney in plain language. That is the consequence I wanted, and it happened. Evelyn is out. The policies are fixed. The money is coming back. The next morning, I am walking to my car when I see the maintenance worker in the reflective vest trimming hedges near the mailbox cluster. He sees me and nods. He says, I heard you won. I say, news travels fast. He says, everybody knew Evelyn was dirty. You just proved it. I say, I had help. He says still, You stood up. Most people do not. I thank him and get in my car. I drive to my first site inspection of the day, and for the first time in 2 months, I am not thinking about fines, or tow trucks, or notices. I am just doing my job. 3 weeks later, I get the reimbursement check in the mail. $225. I deposit it and use it to pay down my credit card. The balance is still high, but it is moving in the right direction. A month after that, Diane texts me, Evelyn resigned from the board. The new secretary is a guy named Tom who actually follows the rules. You should meet him. I text back maybe. I am just glad it is over. But I know it is not completely over. I still live in Park Pass Ridge Commons. I still see the mailbox cluster every day. I still park in my assigned spot and check for contractor trucks. The handheld label maker is gone. The retractable badge reel is gone. And the folding signs are gone. But the memory of it is still there, and I think it always will be. One afternoon in late July, I am walking to my car when a woman I do not recognize stops me. She says, "Are you the guy who fought Evelyn?" I say, "Yeah." She says, "I just moved in last month. I heard the story. Thank you. I feel safer knowing there is accountability now." I say, "I hope it stays that way." She says, "Me too." I get in my car and drive to work. The story has become neighborhood legend now, passed around at the mailbox cluster and in the group chat. I do not love the attention, but I appreciate the result. Karen tries to shame me, and the neighbor fact-checks her instantly. That moment in the grocery store lot, when the bystander started filming and told Evelyn she was wrong, that was the turning point. That was when I knew I was not alone. I still have the dash cam running every time I park. I still keep my evidence folder backed up in 3 places. I still read the HOA emails carefully and save every notice. But I do not live in fear anymore. I pay my dues, I follow the rules, and I know that if someone tries to bury me again, I have the tools to fight back. A complaint to the management company that triggers discipline. That was the payback vector, and it worked. Marco's statement, Diane's testimony, the dashcam footage, the grocery store video, the emails, the timeline, all of it together forced the management company to act. They could not ignore it. They could not bury it. And when Gerald Moss saw the evidence in court, even he knew Evelyn was cooked. The trump card was a management company invoice trail showing bogus legal fees were added without authorization. I used it to request a temporary order to stop enforcement while the dispute was reviewed. That $75 legal fee that jumped to $275 with no explanation, that was the smoking gun. When I demanded an itemized breakdown and Gerald could not provide one, the judge knew something was wrong. It did not just win me the case. It triggered the compliance audit that cleaned up the whole system. Now when I walk through the neighborhood, I see the new signs. They are professionally printed and mounted on proper posts, not drilled into the asphalt with a cordless drill. They say things like, guest parking, 2-hour limit, call office for extended stays. Reasonable. Clear. Legal. I see neighbors I have never met before, and some of them nod or wave. I see Diane at the mailbox cluster, and she always has a story about some new small victory, a fine that was reversed, a notice that was corrected, a rule that was clarified. The culture is changing, slowly, because one person stood up and refused to be buried. Evelyn is gone. I have not seen her since the courthouse. I heard she moved to a different development across town, one with fewer rules and no label maker required. I do not wish her harm, but I do not miss her either. She was a problem, and problems get solved. I still work my job. I still rotate between sites in Meridian, Nampa, and Boise. I still wear my blue hoodie with the hood up and my bucket hat when it is sunny. I still keep a tow release receipt and a sleeve in my glove box, not because I think I will need it, but because it reminds me of what I survived. And on the days when I feel like the system is rigged, when I feel like the people with clipboards and label makers will always win, I remember that judge's voice in the courtroom saying, "The rules also require written notice and a hearing before fines are issued." Did the association provide that? I remember Evelyn's face when the gavel came down. I remember the maintenance worker nodding at me and saying, "You stood up." Most people do not. I appreciate you showing up today.